Today on the show, in light of what Aunt Becky did, how important really is a college education?
Welcome to the future, where the glass is half full and you'll need new glasses, where you'll be jumping from conclusions.
The past is annulled, and a new future is born.
Never before in history has so much meant so little to so many. AD on the radio.
You know, we're in an awfully weird place at the moment. To say we're divided in America is not really good enough. It's not really thorough enough. Like, if you are running for some sort of political office, rather than attack the competition on the other side of the political fence, if you're like me, you'd be happy to just pop some popcorn, sit back, and watch them destroy each other. Yeah. There's this habit that people on the left and the right tend to have of eating each other before they even have a chance to go to battle. And I can't think of a better example of it than what happened to that woman, Deborah Messing. You know, she was on that show, Will and Grace. She's very outspoken politically on Twitter. She's uber liberal, and she is extraordinarily active, and she's got some strong convictions, and she gets after it. And, well, there you go. It's very clearly defined what Deborah Messing is. She's a liberal, she's a passionate liberal, and she's going to advocate for all things liberal, including things like, well, equal rights for women, which, by the way, should not be a liberal thing. There should be bipartisan across the board. Yeah, we obviously need equality. Here's the thing, though. The liberal battle cry is women aren't equal. The conservative battle cry is, of course they are. And if you keep putting them in this box, they're never going to attain true equality because you keep treating them differently. It's that idea of identity politics. They're like, well, we're just not going to even bother with the fact that this person's a woman. We're just going to treat them as a person. And by you asking for things like International Women's Day, well, all you're doing is defining them as a woman and not as a person. We got to not have that. So both sides will say they're for equality, but one side will say we've already got it, and talking about this takes away from that. The other side will say we don't have it, not even close there. Buster. But Deborah Messing celebrated International Women's Day, and, well, like I said, it's a classic example of one political party being willing to eat their own. And I had to laugh, and I kind of felt lousy for her, too. Because she's doing what she's doing. And by the way, I don't have a dog in this fight. I just sort of, well, I'm a popcorn popper. I sit back and I watch and I observe and I just try and, well, find some interesting things for us to chat about that we can all agree on and, well, move forward with. But it was a post she did for International Women's Day on Instagram. Did you see this? Her initial Instagram post featured a picture of cupcakes shaped like a woman's most intimate of areas. Yeah, it was cupcakes that looked like female genitalia. And she posted this picture along with a message, "Happy International Women's Day. Powerful, beautiful, and sweet." And then she was called out numerous times from people saying things like, "So, when are we going to stop equating genitalia to gender? I love you so much, but this is super exclusionary of trans women, and that's not cool. I hope you realize this literally excludes trans women. This is very uncool. Let's not erase trans women." Like I said, she posted some cupcakes on Instagram shaped like female genitalia and got eaten by her own for being transphobic. Oh, here was another one of my favorite complaints. Not all women have vulvas. And so she apologized. She said, "I want to apologize to my trans sisters. This photo is supposed to be light and sassy. The first thing I thought when I saw the photo was, wow, how wonderful. I did not, however, think, but there are innumerable, beautiful, unique, and powerful women that don't have a vagina. And I should have. And for that, I am so, so sorry. Thank you for righting my wrong." I mean, It was very big of her to take it on the chin that way. If I was her, though, I would have said something more along the lines of, are you freaking kidding me? No one advocates for equality more than me. I'm extremely vocal about it. I'm extremely visual about it. Clearly this is not done out of malice. Like I said, she was extraordinarily understanding, but it reminds me of the time that RuPaul got in trouble. I don't know if you remember this, but RuPaul, who, by the way, is one of my favorite people on the face of the planet. This is a person who, oh man, what I wouldn't give to have RuPaul on this show. Because RuPaul is a person that had to lie down on broken glass and barbed wire for the ability to be himself. RuPaul was cross-dressing. He was a drag queen in Georgia in the 1970s. Now, you kind of picture what it would be like to be a black drag queen singing in a punk rock band, which he was, in Georgia in the 1970s. What do you suppose that was like? Yeah. And RuPaul, you ever seen that show Drag Race? I mean, it's not my thing, but every time I'm flipping around and I see that it's on, I'm so glad we have it because it's normalized something. And you see that and you just go, oh, it's a show about drag queens. It's a drag queen competition. That's really cool. That's fine. That's great. That's all right. Cool. Great. But the amount of heavy lifting that had to be done to get to that place where RuPaul created a media empire. This is a person that had to fight for the privilege of just being themselves. And had done so much for equality, so much for acceptance, so much for the right of people to be who they are. And he had this segment on his show where the contestants would get an email from him, but because it was Drag Race, they called it she-mail. I think the bit was like, you got she-mail or something like that. And people took great exception to that part on his show and went after him, knives out. And RuPaul had to change that part of the show, I think. And the idea that RuPaul, a person who, like I said, had to lie down on broken wire and barbed wire and broken glass and fight just to be who RuPaul was, that paved the way, that did so much heavy lifting for equality in this world. The fact that people were only too quick to take RuPaul down and criticize and go after something that RuPaul was doing is just insane. And a perfect example of one side of the political fence being more than capable of eating itself. If you're going up against them, just wait a second. They'll probably take each other down before you even have to.
Real radio. 104.1.
Where the left and right come together for fundamental truths. AD on the radio, on Twitter at ADSXE.
All right, you and I will get into the big conversation with regard to Aunt Becky in just a little bit after we take in this moment of supreme irony from an old episode of Full House.
Look, Mrs. Jacobs, we have to be honest. Well, I have to be honest. We may have, well, he may have embellished, lied a bit on our application.
Honest. She's been on this honesty kick all week.
Well, we had a feeling you might have embellished. Not too many 2-year-olds are proficient on the bassoon.
The bassoon?
Well, they're too short for the cello.
It only shows you want what's best for your boy. So, come along, children. We're going to have a wonderful time. Mrs. Katsopoulos, Ambassador.
So, yeah, you know, it's super disappointing when one of your beloved childhood heroes turns out to be, you know, awful, just awful. And there's been a lot of that happening recently. People whose work we loved as kids. Well, folks like Michael Jackson and Bill Cosby, they make it feel like big chunks of our childhood are lies, I tell you, lies. And now it has, of course, happened again. We grew up looking up to them, idolizing them, and now they're in disgrace. Lori Loughlin, Aunt Becky from Full House, Felicity Huffman, and her husband, William H. Macy, are among those charged in a nationwide college admissions bribery scandal. It's embarrassing for Loughlin. Not as embarrassing as doing Fuller House, but embarrassing nevertheless. So yeah, Aunt Becky's in big trouble, mister. Lori Loughlin and Felicity Huffman, like I said, they're in big trouble. They just got busted as part of a massive nationwide college admissions scandal. The biggest one our Justice Department has ever investigated. Question for you. What would you do to make sure your kid got into college? It's an interesting one. Only because, well, these are kids that already had a lot of advantages. And you know what's interesting? A lot of the kids, I guess, weren't aware these things were happening. They're calling it Operation Varsity Blues. The official charges against both of them are conspiracy to commit mail fraud and honest services mail fraud. Now, obviously, anytime you commit anything that involves a mail, anytime you commit any kind of crime that involves a mail, that's a federal offense. So it could be very serious. Here's what happened in a nutshell. A man named William Singer set up a fake charity that rich people would pay into. In exchange, he would fraudulently get their kids into some of the top schools in the country. Now, this is interesting. How would he do it? Sometimes with straight up bribes. Just bribe a kid's way into school. But Singer would also help students cheat on college entrance exams, or he'd even fake athletic credentials from them. And that got some, that led to some next level photoshopping. That often included staging photo shoots of the students playing a sport or taking pictures of another athlete and photoshopping their face onto them. Like, this is it. Like, seriously, this is the best plan you could come up with? You're going to take a picture of another high school athlete and get paid by rich parents to Photoshop their kid's face onto it? It's insane. People were paying from thousands to millions of dollars to get their kids into schools like Georgetown, UCLA, USC, Stanford, Wake Forest, Yale, and others. And this is a scam that's been going on since 2011. And you know what? A scam like this doesn't just happen overnight. I'm going to go out on a limb and guess there were isolated incidents that led to this becoming a full-time business. Anyways, Huffman, who you probably know best from that show, Desperate Housewives, reportedly paid $15,000 to help her oldest daughter out. What happened was that after she took the SAT, a proctor secretly corrected her wrong answers. Yeah. And they almost didn't get the proctor they wanted. The feds have an email Felicity wrote to Singer in 2017 that says, quote, "Rutrow, looks like my daughter's high school wants to provide their own proctor." So the parents were super involved. It wasn't just, we're going to pay you this money, you get our kids into this. It was, they were hyper aware of how they were cheating the system. Felicity and her husband, William H. Macy, talked to Singer about doing it again for their younger daughter, but decided not to. Macy, as it turns out, was not charged, but that's kind of a technicality. They have evidence that he participated in talks for the younger daughter, but that transaction never went through. As for Lori Loughlin, she and her husband, Massimo Giannulli, I think that's his name, they both got nailed. They allegedly paid, get this, $500,000 to have their two daughters designated as recruits to the USC crew team, even though neither of them rode, neither of them participated in the sport. The feds say they just sent the school pictures of the girls on rowing machines. That's it. It sounds like if these two don't get a good lawyer, they're going to have an emptier house as opposed to a fuller house pretty soon. Charges have been filed against dozens of people, including exam administrators, school athletics coaches, and parents. It's not clear if they're going to go after any of the kids. A lot of the kids seem to have been oblivious. Really? I got in? Oh, my SAT scores must have been much better than I thought. Yeah, you're brilliant. We're so proud of you. And the colleges themselves seem to be off the hook, at least for now. Felicity was reportedly arrested by FBI agents that had their guns drawn early the other morning. Her bond was set at $250,000 and she was ordered to surrender her passport. Lori would have received the same treatment, but she was out of the country. She's expected to have surrendered. I think she already did. And as an act of supreme irony, Lori's 19-year-old daughter, Olivia Jade, posted a video last August saying she doesn't even care about school.
So I'll be going to college and I'll still be working on YouTube. With work, it's going to be hard. Like my first week of school, I'm leaving to go to Fiji for work. And then I'll be in New York a bunch this year for work and traveling to a different country because I'm creating something with this country and that's for work. So I don't know how much of school I'm going to attend, but I'm going to go in and talk to my deans and everyone and hope that I can try and balance it all. But I do want the experience of like game days, partying. I don't really care about school, as you guys all know.
And it's unbelievable. Like the kid's got a thriving business. She is all up in the YouTube game. She's having to travel for work. And let's be real here. She has parents that were able to provide her every advantage in the world of show business. And it seems as though she's managing to run with it. She's doing really well with it. Was school necessary for her? Probably not. Yet her parents insisted not only that she go to school, but she go to a really good school to the point where they are now probably going to go to jail because of what they did. Oh, by the way, after Lori Loughlin's daughter, Olivia Jade, said she didn't care about school, people criticized her for taking her education for granted. So a couple days later, she posted another video where she apologized. I bet she's really not taking that education for granted now.
I said something super ignorant and stupid, basically, and it totally came across that I'm not grateful for college. I'm going to a really nice school, and it just kind of made it seem like I don't care. I just want to brush it off. I'm just going to be successful on YouTube and not have to worry about school. And I watch it back and I read the comments and I'm just really disappointed in myself. I'm not here to make excuses or whatever, and obviously I could have done worse, but it's just annoying and frustrating to look on, I guess, because I'm not like that, and I didn't mean it that way. So I'm not trying to like come out here and defend myself or anything, but I just genuinely want to say I'm sorry for anyone I've offended by saying that. I know that it's a privilege and it's a blessing, and I'm really grateful. I think a lot of people obviously like to attack me because I've grown up a different life. Again, that's not me. I just want to be real with you guys, I guess. I would never, ever, ever want to offend or hurt my subscribers.
I'm going to go out on a limb and guess she is really not taking the education for granted now. But it's amazing. It brings up a larger question. That of education, that of going to college, that of a college degree, and how much emphasis people still place on that in 2019. I'm curious to get your take on this situation. Do you have a college degree? Do you think a college degree is necessary? Do you maybe wish you had one? Or are you one of those people that went, what good did my college degree really do me? Tweet me at ADSXE and we'll continue this conversation next.
For more stimulation and less irritation, 9 out of 10 doctors choose KPRC AM 950, Houston's more stimulating talk radio.
Don't get the blues, get all the news. We mean all of you guys out there in Radioland. All aboard!
He's back. AD on the radio.
Give it up, yeah. Give it up, yeah. Bring this on, come on, come on.
So yeah, no surprise that the late night guys were all over the SAT college scandal.
Did you guys hear about this? The FBI arrested a bunch of parents who paid other people to take the SAT and ACT for their kids. Then 99% of the NFL and NBA were like, yeah, that's crazy.
Lori Loughlin from Full House was charged. She played Aunt Becky. There's a warrant for her arrest. They're saying this could be the Becky with the good hair Beyonce warned us about.
I'm so disappointed in you, Aunt Becky. I mean, I expected this from a desperate housewife, but you?
The FBI was tipped off by the essay question on this year's Common Application. Reflect on an accomplishment that sparked personal growth and or list your parents' credit card number. What prompted your choice? What is the 3-digit security code? Wow.
So did you go to college? Maybe you're going to college right now. Did you think it was a good idea to go to college? Was it tough to get into college? Did you jump through all sorts of hoops when you were trying to get into college? Did you go to college and did you wind up thinking to yourself, what did I just pay for? I'm still paying that off. And what I studied in school has nothing to do with how I make my living. Here's the thing. Education's a weird thing. I did not go to college. In retrospect, I wish I had. But only because I missed out on the experience. See, when I was a kid, I don't know how. Like, to this day, I think it was just because I didn't know the answers and I was just making patterns that I found amusing. Those little ovals that you had to fill out when you take the SATs and the PSATs. I had really high SAT scores. So I got this thing called the National Merit Scholarship. I got a National Merit Scholarship. And I was going to go. I wanted to be a musician. I'd played drums since I was 4 years old. And I wanted to be a musician. But my mom, who's a classical cellist, was like, yeah, a musician's a tough gig, kid. Why don't you get a real education at the same time? So I was going to do a double degree program between Tufts and New England Conservatory of Music. And I got in. I was a good enough drummer that I got a scholarship to New England Conservatory of Music. And my SAT scores were good enough that I got one of those National Merit Scholarship things that was going to look after a big chunk of the cost of my education. My parents were elated and over the moon. And then a little less elated when the band I was in, when I was in high school, got a record deal. And I was like, yeah, no thanks. You offer a teenage boy the choice between a dorm room and a tour bus. And I can tell you from experience, he will take that tour bus every single time. So I didn't wind up going. I wish I would have wound up going because I missed out on that experience. Now, look, the time that I spent in a band on tour was a lot like university for me. I look back on it and go, well, I was stupid, but I had a lot of fun and I learned some stuff and it kind of set me up for the life that was to come. When I was a kid in a band, I was sort of in the school of hard knocks. It's not like we lived an especially rough life. We were very privileged. We signed a major label record deal almost immediately, and we got tour buses and people to carry our stuff and got to live and work in expensive recording facilities and things of that nature. But I got a quick, smart lesson on economics. I got a quick, smart lesson on taxes. I got a quick, smart lesson on doing things like settling with a massive venue, doing merch splits, things like that. I understood how business worked at a very high level. It was a crash course in adulthood. It was funny because in one sense, being in a band required me to not grow up at all. In fact, studiously avoid it. But on the other hand, it became time to put on some big boy pants very, very quickly in some respects. So I learned a lot and it kind of set me up for what I was going to do. But I missed out on that experience of going to college and having that sort of real life with training wheels thing that you get when you move into a dorm room or you move into a house off campus, or like all those things, all those firsts that people get, all the sort of like interesting social situations that you find yourself in when you go away to college for the first time. I didn't do that. And I kind of regret not having done that, especially because there was a bit of a free ride involved. 4 years later, after I was supposed to go to school, my mom got an invitation to my graduation and I hadn't attended a day of school. And I was like, wonder if I just show up. I wonder if I can collect a college diploma. I didn't try that out. But fact remains, I didn't go to college. And my mom was visiting me a little while ago. I flew my mom into town to go meet my baby niece for the very first time. And at the time when I decided I wasn't going to go to college, my mom was really, really upset. And, you know, in all these years, we never really talked about it too much. And she was like, you kind of skipped college. I was like, what do you mean? She's like, well, like a lot of people skip a grade in school. You skip college. I was like, yeah, but I'm not qualified for anything. I don't have a college degree. Well, she was like, do you remember what you were going to study? I was like, actually, no, I mean, obviously I was going to get the music degree from the music school, but I don't remember. I remember what I was going to do with the rest of it. She was like, you were going to be a journalist. You wanted to go to school to be a journalist. And I was like, that's right, I did. And she's like, well, you were a professional musician for years, so you got that out of the way. And look at what you do now. You are a member of the media. You practice your own type of journalism. You basically wound up doing all the things that you were going to do without having to go to college. You skip college like a lot of people skip a grade in school. And I was like, wow. She's like, I didn't think that at the time, but you've made it work and everything's okay. And I was like, oh, there you go. But it made me think. I've got friends that work in the staffing world, tech staffing world. And you know what? I asked them about this in the light of the college scandal, in the light of what some parents are willing to do to get their kids into the school of their choice. How important is a college degree? And they're like, it's really not what it used to be. I was like, really? I'm like, yeah. I mean, ultimately, if you can write code, we can put you to work. And if you've got experience writing code, we can put you to work super quick. We don't care that you're missing a couple of phys ed credits. If you went to school long enough to pick up the tools of the trade needed to be placed by us so we can make money off of you, then we are only too happy to do that. And I was like, where you're placing these candidates, they don't require a college degree? They're like, no. In the tech world, they kind of can't hire people fast enough. They have more of a need. It's a very lucrative business. There's more of a need for people that can do the job, to the point where they are not in any way, shape, or form bothered by whether or not someone has a college degree. If they're capable of doing the work, they want to put them to work because they have a very definite need for it. And that's tech. Tech is sort of the Wild West. Tech is a different thing where, like I said, there's a need for workers that is in many places unfulfilled. So if someone has a set of skills, man, they're going to work. I think it was one of the guys who founded Reddit that said a little while ago, if you're unemployed, just learn to write code. I literally can't hire people to write code fast enough. But whatever the case may be, there is a bit of an anti-higher education sentiment that exists in America these days that comes from two different places. One of those places is people going, I'm not having those professors fill my kid's head full of that nonsense. Not paying for that. No siree. And then the other side of it is, oh man, you're going to go to school. It's going to take all these years out of your life. You're going to have to get that degree. And then you're going to spend so long paying back your college education, because college education, especially from a decent school, has gotten to be so unbelievably expensive that, you could wind up paying hundreds of thousands of dollars to land a job that only pays you $60,000 a year. You're going to be paying that off forever and ever. I've got friends that are beating the crap out of their 30s that are still paying off their student loans, that are not in a line of work that has anything to do with their degree. And when I asked them, do you feel like it was necessary? And they're like, well, at the time when we were entering the workforce, it was necessary to have a degree just to get looked at for any kind of job. I'm applying for a job. Do you have a degree? No. Well, sorry, the person with a degree is going to get it. But now it seems as though people are a little bit more cognizant of the fact that college might not financially make the most sense for a lot of people. So this need for someone to have a degree is going away. And you know what? I'm not anti-education whatsoever. I'm kind of shocked and appalled that there's this anti-higher learning sentiment that exists in America. There is real joy in learning. There's real joy in education. It is important to expand your mind. It is important to learn. It is important to grow. It is important that we grow up in this country and our kids grow up in this country loving the experience of learning. And vilifying college does not, from an ideological standpoint, do us much good. In fact, it moves us backwards. However, the idea that you need a degree to work is stupid. And I hope that we're letting go of that. I really do. And I think that this high-profile instance of people getting caught buying their kids' way into prestigious schools is just going to hurt the credibility of those schools. You would like to think that these institutions of higher learning were beyond that kind of thing. Institutions of higher learning go a long way on the presumption of integrity, and that has just been destroyed. So I hope there is some sort of correction, and I hope that this is part of it. I hope that we as a society start to realize that if someone has the ability and can work, they should be put to work. And I hope that institutions of higher learning start going, oh man, maybe it's time that everybody really does have a fair shot. Because one thing that's become abundantly clear over the last couple of days is that they do not. And that is shameful.
get washed away.
Now, more AD on the radio.
So you know how at the beginning of the show, and by the way, we'll get into our segment, My Witness News, where we discuss the events of today in just a little bit. But you know how at the beginning of the show, we were talking about the fact that Deborah Messing was sort of, well, the liberals ate their own with Deborah Messing and her International Women's Day post. She posted a picture of cupcakes in the shape of female genitalia online to celebrate International Women's Day. And what happened? Well, basically, she was attacked by people for being transphobic because not all women are equipped like that south of the equator. There you go. Interesting times we live in. But I was actually genuinely fascinated by this. Have you heard about this new genderless voice assistant? It's called Q. And it's like Alexa or Siri, but it's neither male nor female. It was launched by a startup, and it was created using the voices of people who identify as non-binary, meaning people who don't identify as exclusively male or female. So have a listen to this and let me know. Can you discern or can you attribute gender to this voice? Because genuinely, I cannot.
Hi, I'm Q, the world's first genderless voice assistant. Think of me like Siri or Alexa, but neither male nor female. I'm created for a future where we are no longer defined by gender, but rather how we define ourselves. My voice was recorded by people who neither identify as male nor female, and then altered to sound gender neutral, putting my voice between 145 and 175 Hz, a range defined by audio researchers. But for me to become a third option for voice assistants, I need your help. Share my voice with Apple, Amazon, Google, and Microsoft. And together we can ensure that technology recognizes us all. Thanks for listening.
You know, it's fascinating. I listened to that 3 or 4 times in a row, and I was like, yeah, I cannot. At first, I was like, oh, this is definitely a female voice that they've altered in some way, shape, or form. And then I was like, no, it sounds like a teenage boy. And then I was like, nope, I can't pin this down. It really is, I guess, kind of a genderless voice. What do you think? Do you hear a gender? Because I, after really looking for one, did not. I thought that was kind of cool. Now, I know there's a lot of people that are saying, what would be wrong with a male or female voice assistant? Why is this necessary? This is overkill. This is exhausting. Why can't we just be nice to people? And why do we? Well, here's the thing. Whenever the issue of gender comes up on the show, oftentimes it is in relation to something that a lot of people go, oh, what? I hadn't thought of it that way, and this seems unnecessary, and this seems over the top, or this seems, oh, why are we doing this? And I'll tell you why we're doing this. And I'll tell you why I really appreciate things like this. It always comes back to valuing human life. And in a very literal sense, wanting to preserve human life, wanting people to not die. You might have been around when we talked about this on the show in the past. Maybe not. But it bears repeating. If you are your common or garden man or woman, male or female, you are straight, you are equipped with all the things south of the equator that history has dictated makes you a male or a female, then the attempted suicide rate is somewhere around 4%. Now, if you are gay, the attempted suicide rate jumps up significantly. And the more kind of standard deviations away from the mean that you get with regard to sexuality and gender, the greater the chance of attempted suicide is. Until you get to people whose genders are undefined, unspecific, or maybe they feel wrong with regard to what they have going on south of the equator. If you feel you were born into the wrong body, you identify as a different sex than you are, or if you've got any sort of, like I said, anything going on with regard to gender that are a couple of standard deviations away from the mean, then the attempted suicide rate jumps up to like 40%. I think it might have been more than that last time I checked, 44%. So anything like this, anything like a genderless voice assistant that comes along, anything like Q that does something to normalize the idea that some people don't think of themselves as being a man or a woman when we think of them as being a man or a woman, or anything that comes along to normalize the idea of gender being something that is not necessarily everything we perceive it to be. Anything that does that chips away at that attempted suicide rate of close to half. And, well, solely because things like Q, I think, I hope, I pray, can help lower a body count by just being a little contributing factor to us changing our thinking and not having gender be an issue to us. Well, I think that's a good thing. All right, then, we don't have much time left, but let's get into the events of today in our segment, My Witness News, shall we? Did you see that a 27-year-old lawyer in New York, a guy named Tommy Straub, got an electric bill for $38 million this week? Yeah. He lives in a 600-square-foot apartment in Queens, and his electricity bill is usually more like $75. But when he went to pay it online, it was $37 million. My favorite part is that instead of complaining to the power company, he tweeted about it.
I had assumed it was a problem. The $74 had turned into the pay field into 37 million or so, and I tried to change it, and I was highlighting it, trying to backspace it, refresh the page. Nothing worked.
Tommy didn't panic. He tweeted, "Hey Con Edison, I own a 600-square-foot apartment in Astoria, Queens. I do not own the entirety of Manhattan Island. This is insane. Fix it."
Should your first step have been to contact Con Ed directly instead of via tweet?
I think so, but it probably at my, and people who are my age or 27 or so, I just figured, you know what, I'll send them a tweet and I'll see if they direct message me in the morning. It's not fun for me to go through a Twitter timeline with thousands of tweets or thousands of responses, people telling me that I'm lying. He said he's very sorry, Con Ed apologized. They said, you do not owe us $37 million, and they assured me that there was no issue.
It's kind of funny. The reporter was sort of giving him grief for being a millennial that went after the problem on Twitter instead of calling the power company. But here's what's rather interesting about this. I found out from somebody that does customer service at a pretty high level that oftentimes the people you're connected with when you complain about this sort of thing on Twitter are, well, able to do things about it. It's elevated because it's so public. And they're like, oh man, all you need is a halfway decent Twitter following. And sometimes you don't even need that at all. And you're going to get your problem attended to much quicker than if you sat on the phone on hold forever and ever, because it becomes a PR nightmare for us. So, yeah, he was given a hard time for taking his argument to Twitter rather than making a phone call. But as it turns out, he might have been doing the right thing. 2019 is an interesting time. All right, I'll be back tomorrow. We'll do it all over again. Thank you so much for hanging out.